Welcome to The Reset, a weekly dispatch of experiences and takes on performance and modern care. For the athlete, the practitioner, and the thinker, we break down recovery, health, and performance systems to reshape the conversation around wellness. Hello everyone and welcome to The Reset. In today's episode, we'll be talking about the accumulated experiences of physical trauma and the potential for them to be stored within our library of stories, the body. We're going to cover the accumulation, the disassociation, and eventual desensitization of these traumas and how they can shape our mind's ability to move around the pain that we've caused it. How this shapes our everyday life, through physical movement, through work, and our relationships. I hope you enjoy it. The Reset, Episode 27. A Library of Stories. The accumulated experiences of physical trauma and their potential to be stored as memories within the body. When I was in my prime as an athlete, I was rarely in a state of perfect health. It comes with the territory. It's a compromise you make competing at a high level. You understand that there are times where your body won't feel its greatest, and you expect this. You work with it. What I did not realize is the longer I went on playing the game of hockey, the quicker it would take for me to forget the pain or dysfunction that came alongside the physical trauma of the game. Disassociation, desensitization, or sheer ignorance. I felt as if the accumulation of trauma didn't add up to a scenario where I wasn't physically capable anymore. Because I had made an effort to forget those moments of dysfunction or pain, and built on top of them so rigorously, they should have disappeared entirely, right? Well, I think that's what brings me to writing about this today. It's something that doesn't get the spotlight because even with the brightest LED bulb, the specter of pain has a way of eluding the bright scrutiny of medical assessment of an athlete, or even someone exposed to a lifetime of accumulated physical and psychological stress, aka most of us. The interesting part of this is not why we tend to forget these experiences, which is quite obvious. It is to move forward with the daily struggle, regardless of if it entails building muscle or building a business, but how we consciously forget it and still contain the knowledge or memory of its existence for the next time that we are reminded of its presence or potential. This is the paradigm we will explore today. The human. Certainly what we feel within our own body has a tale that comes with it. Every scar, every broken bone, every pinched nerve or trigger point. We have a story that goes along with those, that highlights the path that got us there. Whether an acute, sudden incident that causes traumatic response, aka a rolled ankle or broken arm, or the consistent, repetitive accumulation of a certain posture or movement, aka sitting at a desk for work. Both of these can create a lasting, not necessarily permanent, posture. They all have a cause and effect on the body. But imagine, if we couldn't forget that pain that followed those incidences, imagine we had those experiences at front of mind all the time. Well, some do. Most don't. We tend to compartmentalize and we store them. It's beneficial to keep them safe in a filing cabinet for later, for when we inevitably feel similarly in another scenario, so we can deal with it more efficiently and swiftly, and so perhaps it won't be as bad or as long-lasting. This can reflect an unconscious language of the body, something we maybe don't fully understand yet, hence my earlier comment regarding the specter of pain and all that dramatic nature. For those who do keep those memories and experiences close to and front of mind, the ones unable to forget anymore, it may cause a direct relationship between chronic pain patterns and emotional pain and trauma. This is what we are aiming to explore. This is what we aim to solve. My job as a therapist is always to get people out of a point of pain and into a certain point of comfort where they can feel confident and competent in their movement to reverse these patterns and create better ones. But there's a lot more that goes into that. We will explore this. The physiology. Every scar, tightness, or ache carries a narrative. The body remembers what the mind forgets. We know this. Sparing you the unfathomable depth of the human physiological processes that are involved in what I'm speaking to you about, I will say this. The body is an honest historian. It keeps the records we'd rather forget. We highlighted previously that some are no longer able to forget the pain and dysfunction that followed their physical trauma, which causes a different kind of desensitization to occur. The problem those people are faced with when they're using their pain to their advantage is one that involves confronting that pain or dysfunction in a positive way. For those who cannot remember or choose not to, the issue remains facing the current state they are in, and creating awareness around the situation they must navigate to get better. We can view the ability to store these memories as a positive tool, which can be completely useful, but awareness, not avoidance, rewrites the narrative. When you begin to listen in on those stored stories without judgment, they begin to move. And movement is how memory transforms. It becomes more about how the body is retaught positive patterns of movement and behavior, rather than focusing on correcting existing faulty patterns or fixing what's broken. Chronic stress increases muscle tone and fascial tension throughout sustained sympathetic activation. We've talked about this many times before. This is why an emotional release that can be accompanied by deep tissue or mobility work is the body finally letting go of old neural patterns stuck in their way. I always believed in replacing faulty mechanisms when working on someone's chronic issues. This is the only way to make sure they do not repeat themselves. For that to happen, the body must be convinced that there is a new, better, and safer way to do things. And so therefore, removing old barriers to this happening are the first step, but arguably the most important one. Healing here means coherence, not perfection, but participation of all systems. I'm just here to help. The body. Understanding where to reconnect your brain and body again is the first step to repatterning and to heal your previous physical pain problems. This requires a lot of effort and is not necessarily linked directly to time allotted towards that effort. So practice makes permanent in this case. Practice this tracing memory technique. Choose one area of chronic tension, one that you're aware of constantly, but one that doesn't cause you tremendous amounts of debilitating discomfort every day. Place a hand over it. Breathe into it for 5 slow cycles, counting 3 seconds to 5 seconds each. Ask softly, what am I holding here? What does this feel like? You don't need an answer just yet. It's just more beneficial to be curious in this sense. Explain to yourself that you're in one piece and not broken. You just require a little attention. This will help reground you within your own body and feel more aligned with your physical self in that moment. Sometimes the act of asking these questions is the release itself. Other times, it's simply an accurate way of finally putting an external touch on an internal feel, one that you've been having for a while. I like to think of this process or exercise as being in a restaurant every day for lunch and smelling everything that the chef is cooking in the back, but never actually ordering anything, never tasting it for yourself. To complete this exercise regularly might lead to you actually tasting the food and either confirming or refuting your suspicions of what it might actually be like. You can never know until you have the experience firsthand. This is very important for your journey of growth into a new wellness something that is sustainable, something that you can be proud of, and something that you can repeat every single day, especially when you're not feeling your best. You have to be grounded. You have to understand yourself, and you have to feel it for yourself. Closing feels. We can spend years trying to outrun what the body has already archived. Years convincing ourselves that if we don't look back, the past can't possibly catch up. But the truth is simpler and far less dramatic. The body doesn't hold grudges. Rather, it holds information. And information, when we finally decide to meet it where it is, becomes guidance. This isn't about becoming pain-free or fixing the leftover remnant of our history of pain and dysfunction. It's about becoming fluent again in the language that our body has been speaking this whole time, and taking those subtle signs of information for what they actually are. Whispers, warnings, and hints at subtle recalibrations. It's about reclaiming the parts of ourselves we've stored away for later, and finally deciding that now counts as later. When we choose curiosity over avoidance, the system reorganizes itself. The stories move, the tension loosens, and the patterns that once protected us become the very material we use to rebuild. So when you place your hand over that old ache, that familiar tightness, that spot you've ignored for months or years, you're not acknowledging discomfort. You're acknowledging a relationship, one that's been waiting for your attention, not your perfection. Healing isn't linear, and it's not loud. It's incremental coherence. It's choosing to participate in your own narrative again. It's remembering that the body isn't a battleground for past injuries, but rather the living archive of every adaptation you've ever made to stay in the game. And if you can learn to meet those stored stories with a little more patience, a little more presence, you might just find that the parts of you that were broken were simply waiting to be heard. In health and performance, Alex.